Well, Anitra, it's time to fill a farm with animals, and this time we're going to do it in Stampfarm.
This is a snap review for Stampfarm.
Stampfarm is a game by Walter Obert, and it's published by DV Games. The box says it's for 2 to 5 players, ages 6 and up, and it plays in about 20 minutes. There's some art. Let's talk about the art in Stampfarm.
As you might guess, there are stamps in this game. They're cute, they're self-inking, and they're these big chunky squares that line up really nicely with the squares on the player sheets.
The colors and the animal symbols are the same on the stamps, the dice, and the scoring area at the bottom of the sheet. So no one is going to get confused about what does what.
Even the tiles for the advanced play option have clear instructions, and each one gives an example through a picture of how they work.
So Anitra, let's talk about the mechanics of Stampfarm.
Set out 5 animal stamps and give everyone their own player sheet. The first player rolls all 3 dice, and then they reserve the one that they want, using the corresponding stamp to make a mark somewhere in their grid. All of the other players can choose from the 2 options presented by the 2 remaining dice. Everyone gets a chance to stamp. At 3 or more players, this means you'll sometimes have to wait for the stamp that you want to use.
Then you're going to pass the dice to the next player. If a hay bale is rolled, that's a wild, and the player may use that to stamp any kind of animal they want. If you don't like your current choices for stamps, there are 2 spots in the barn that don't count towards final scoring.
Let's talk about that final scoring. Your goal is to make connected groups of each animal type. At the end of the game, you count the animals in your largest group of each type. So if I've got a group of 5 sheep and a group of 2 sheep, I will score 5 for my sheep. If you have 2 groups tied for the largest, count them both. Here I have 2 groups of 3 cows each, so I score 6 points for my cows.
A single animal by itself, sadly, is lonely and not in a group, and it scores 0 points. After scoring all 5 animal types, the player with the most points wins. Now, Stampfarm does have an advanced mode which introduces a little bit more strategy.
First, you'll actually be using the hay bale stamp. On its own, it's not worth points, but it may help you fulfill requests.
Requests come in 3 types. Pick 1 request tile of each type before starting the game. Usually one that involves a hay bale placement, one that has relationships between animals, and one that wants certain animals to be next to the hedge.
The hedge is the last change. We ignore it in the basic game, but in the advanced game, it separates squares that would otherwise be adjacent. Scoring the animals works exactly the same in the advanced game. But then you also score how well you did on the 3 requests to find out who is the best farm designer.
Well, that's how you play this game. What did we expect from Stampfarm?
Games that roll dice and mark off paper sheets can be really tough for young kids. Even if a kid understands the mechanics of a roll and write game, there's a lot of fine motor skills involved.
Stampfarm removes the need for writing or even coloring and replaces it with stamps, so it actually should be even more accessible for young kids.
So when I first saw this game, I expected something really simple, sort of an introduction, my first roll and write game.
I was excited because you could tell from the beginning that this was going to be some kind of basically tile placement puzzle, but with stamps instead.
Yeah.
So what surprised us about this game?
So I love how everything fits together in this game. It really gives a scaffolding for any player to get started right away.
The simple mode feels like just the perfect fit for kids between 4 and 6 years old, but there are 2 issues, small issues. First, you still have to write down scores at the end and then add them all together. This isn't really an issue depending on your kid's age, but if they're younger, it could be a problem.
The second problem is that this game just feels too long. It does take less than 20 minutes, but as an adult, I'm ready to be done with the game when we're maybe halfway, about 10 to 12 stamps into the 20 that we'll do. We didn't get to play this with anyone younger than our 9-year-old, so maybe it's less of an issue with younger kids who still love to repeat actions over and over and over again, especially if they can use stamps to do it.
Yeah, I actually think that's probably true. Younger kids do tend to find activities that they enjoy, and so if that's the stamping of the stamps, I think we're going to be okay there. Speaking of the stamps, They are fantastic in this
They're
game.
really
they are
great.
so good. They are perfectly sized. They stamp really well, and they have lovely detail to them. I was honestly impressed with the quality of the stamps in the game.
The yellow ink and the green ink can get a little hard to see, but that's a color issue. You're not going to make a yellow stamp that really stands out.
Sure. I also really appreciated the advanced mode, which is actually, honestly, the only way that I played the game. It's still accessible, though, to pre-reading kids while stepping up the strategy. They were so smart to make all of the even special gold cards pictures only, and you didn't need the words for them.
Yeah.
So, Anitra, do we recommend Stampfarm?
I think Stampfarm could be a great choice for kids who are interested in grown-up games, but don't really have the patience for them yet.
Oh, also for kids who love stamps.
So what are we going to rate Stampfarm from DB Games?
Well, I think we're going to rate Stampfarm 4 stamps out of 5.
And that's Stampfarm
In a snap.
Did you know that the Family Gamers has a weekly podcast? Oh, and over 500 reviews on our website. Check it out at thefamilygamers.com.
So you have the chicken.
Calling me chicken?
Yes.
Okay.